Welcome back to another episode, Doll. Throughout this episode, I'm going to be responding to the points of view of someone called Jonathan Mitchell, who seems to greatly oppose the neurodiversity movement and the concept of neurodiversity, and from a channel called Autism Live, which seems just like mine to be a very one-sided channel. But I would like you to hear the other side of what these people have to say. Because I would like to share both sides of the debate rather than just sticking with my ego, just my one side. So let's see what they have to say. If I just share my screen with you.
Part of what this article was about that was in Newsweek is as how people look at autism and how people with autism look at autism. There's a big movement right now of people who identify themselves as self-advocates who are on the autism spectrum, who talk about neurodiversity and that there's this world of let's just all be different and stop trying to change people who have autism. And your point of view is a little bit different from that.
Well, actually, it's a lot different.
Well, and in fact, what is the title of your blog is Autism's Gadfly, but what's the subtitle?
We don't need no stinking neurodiversity.
Okay. And so explain to us, what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't believe in the concept of neurodiversity. I don't believe that autism is just like a different way of being. I believe it's a disability and a disorder and a disease, and those views neurodiversity doesn't agree with, except they sort of claim it's a disability, but there's sort of like a semantic wordplay where it's like a social disability rather than a medical disability. And if society, and a lot of them believe that if a society provided the correct accommodations, autism wouldn't even be disabling, and I believe that's a bunch of nonsense.
Now, Jonathan Mitchell right there has been full of nonsense and misconceptions about the neurodiversity movement. I found that most critics of the neurodiversity movement don't even seem to know what they are talking about, really. And where he goes claiming, I don't believe in neurodiversity. I would say that's great evidence already he doesn't know what he's talking about, because neurodiversity is simply the diversity of human neurology. So do you think Jonathan Mitchell really believes that all human brains are identical? I'm sure he doesn't, so he doesn't quite know what he's saying there. Like, I don't believe in the concept of neurodiversity. I can understand him saying he disagrees with the neurodiversity movement, but disagreeing with neurodiversity, clearly he's getting things jumbled up on this point already. And when it comes to disease, no, autism's not a disease, because diseases are separable. Disease, disorder, disability, all of them are different things. They are not synonymous. They have different meanings to one another. Like, disabilities can be caused in different ways. It's not everything's biologically deterministic or anything. Sometimes it is caused by the environment, which they call the socially adapted model. There's different models of disability, numerous ways of approaching it, and that creates a difference between disability and disorder. So he already seems to be mistaken there. Now, if we continue.
You describe that, there are times when you're frustrated with how you perceive yourself interacting with the world. Like, what are some things that you find really difficult?
Well, it's like difficult, to have friends and, meet a girlfriend and to get things done, during the day. And if people, stare at me, if I, talk loud or make funny movements, things like that.
And that's been hard for you.
Yeah.
So
Right, so basically what Jonathan Mitchell just complained about there was he complained about the way society treats him. So it's not the autism causing that problem, but the neurodiversity movement is opposing what Jonathan Mitchell just claimed. Jonathan Mitchell's complaining about the discrimination and so on, cultural prejudice. And the neurodiversity movement is about eliminating all the stigma. It's about restoring social justice and so on. It's about stopping the discrimination. Just like the other movements were about stopping sexism and racism. So, again, they don't seem to know what they're talking about.
Somebody were to offer you a quote unquote cure, if there was something, a pill that they could give you today that would take the difficulties that you have away, would you do it?
Sure, if it, as long as I could be like the same person and not have any like untoward side effects or anything like that.
And I think that's the key to everything, what you just said. If I could be the same person, because to me, and help me.
But now here's the thing. You can't get rid of the autism and be the same person because it's genetic, primarily genetic. It produces your genotype. It's genetic variation, natural. And so on. So get rid of one gene. You're not going to eliminate just the part that you like. You're going to eliminate lots of things. This is why things like CRISPR are up for great debate on why they're not being used too soon for particular disorders which involve more than one gene. Because there's no autism gene, it's genetic variation, a collection of genes and so on that lead to the development. It involves a collection of them contributing to the development of autism according to the science at the minute of what we presently understand from autism research. So eliminate one of those genes. You're not going to eliminate one trait, but you'll eliminate lots of traits. If you look up some videos about CRISPR, for example, you'll find people describing it as a pair of molecular scissors. So what they can do at the minute is they can deal with genetic diseases that are caused by just one gene, just one mutation, by altering, editing, adapting it, removing it. That's something that CRISPR has the potential to do, but that's just one gene, just one bit of DNA. But all the traits and so on are by collections of DNA, and those collections contribute towards both what they like about themselves and what we dislike. They contribute towards both. If you imagine that you had the three primary colours on a paint panel, and you mixed all three colours together, so the blue, red and yellow, you mix them all together, and imagine that you removed all the blue. How many shadings do you think you're going to take out by removing just one colour? Lots. And that's the same way it would work with gene editing. If they remove two genes out of someone for a genetic disease, they are going to change lots of things. And that's why they are taking time with CRISPR. So if we continue now.
Help me to understand here, because I have a son who's on the autism spectrum, and I always want to have the world accept him for who he is. I don't want him to be different than who he is. But when he has trouble with something, I don't think of that as being who he is.
Yeah.
I think of it as being separate from him. Just like I am not somebody who has good balance. So me on a motorcycle is never going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. But I don't think of that as being me. I think of that as being something I struggle with. But it seems like...
Actually, no. The neurodiversity movement doesn't go claiming that difficulties are part of who we are, that they're our identity. The neurodiversity movement doesn't claim that. It claims that the autism, whatever autism actually is, as we still don't know what it is yet, but whatever the autism is, the fact it's part of our genotype, it's part of who we are. It produces us. It produces our existence. Then the traits which come off are responses. It's the genes answering to the environment. So we wouldn't behave that way if we were not carrying our parents' genes. and so on. So these two really don't seem to have a scientific understanding of what's going on concerning autism. And notice that they are fixated on autism, but they're complaining about neurodiversity. Neurodiversity includes everyone, just autistic people. So if we
that some of the self-advocates identify themselves as being autism. Do you find that when you're talking to any of the people who have autism that that are self-advocates, that because I know I always struggle that they'll refer to themselves as autistic and they don't like it if you say you have autism. What do you feel about that? What do you prefer when somebody says?
I don't care one way or the other. I've heard that also, but I don't really have an opinion on that.
Do you prefer that somebody say that you are autistic, that you have autism, or do you prefer that they use other words?
I don't care. I don't care one way or the other.
Okay. Because you've got other more important things going on.
That's right.
And you do have a very full life, though. To me, and maybe that's not how you feel about it, but you are busy, you're writing, you have work that you do. So I look at you and I think, you're amazing. And I'm sorry to hear that there are aspects of your life.
So what exactly is their problem then? We go claiming that the neurodiversity movement tends to be led by so-called abled people. But neurodiversity advocates, those of us who actually do support it, we point out that it's those with ASD3 who are like the leading voices, the leading supporters of it. The ones who write so many accounts online on the internet. But these lot go saying, no, it's not them. But now you've got Jonathan Mitchell and people like him. Oh, you've got a fulfilled life and so on. And they're like saying, oh, no, I don't support the neurodiversity movement. So he would be classified as ASD1, just as I would, due to support needs and so on. So they're claiming, why does ASD2 always vanish from the picture in these discussions on anti-neurodiversity? Because they want to divide it. They want it to be categorized differently. They want it to be back. They want to go backwards to when it was classical autism by Leo Connor and Asperger syndrome by Hans Asperger. But what they don't like to share with people is that Hans Asperger was an active participant in racial hygiene and the Nazi Holocaust on the genocide program towards disabled people. And that's why so many people stopped calling themselves Aspies once we found out that Hans Asperger was actually part of the Nazi Holocaust. So, but they seem to want to twist it, but don't seem to like remaining scientific. So if we continue.
Life that are hard enough for you that's not great for you. But when people refer to, there was one article that titled your article about self-hatred.
Well,
do you feel like you hate yourself?
No, but actually that was, like how can I put it? That was like, I'm trying to find the sensationalism on the media's part, like Newsweek sort of, very much sensationalized, that article and, that's not really the way I feel, though a lot of members of neurodiversity have accused me of hating myself or having like a bad mother who taught me to hate myself, but that's not the way it is at all. And my mother actually, like I was in psychoanalysis, and you probably know about the Bettelheim era from history. My mother, unlike you and other mothers, actually lived through that, and she had just like see a psychoanalysis that I was saying who blamed her for a lot of my problems, or
the refrigerator moms that they call everybody. That the autism was.
If we just pause there for a moment, where he talks about self-hatred, I would say yes, I have seen some people accuse opposers of the neurodiversity of self-hatred. Some of them actually do self-hate. hate themselves because they've been described by their own parents as burdens, and they hate themselves for being a burden to the ones they love. And that's why I say parents should be very careful about their language, of how they describe their children. Don't keep saying that your kids are burdens, is one part. But then in the neurodiversity movement and so on, it's not everyone thinks that it's internalized ableism, because there tends to be the two I see most people come down to. It's either self-hatred or internalized ableism. But I've got a third idea in the neurodiversity movement and the neurodiversity paradigm and so on, where just like we have gender dysphoria, where some people feel like they are trapped in the wrong body, I simply think we've got the parallel towards people with their brains. Sometimes people feel trapped in the wrong neurotype, and they feel like they're trapped with the wrong brain. Because why am I so comfortable with my brain, with being autistic? So it shows that in some are okay with it, some are not, some like it, some dislike it. So it shows that it's not a universally bad thing or anything. So I believe in neurotype dysphoria. So if we continue.
Because the moms weren't interacting and so self-advocates are deciding for you that your mother must have fed you some kind of thing that made you not like autism.
Well, in fairness, it's not all of them, but some of them have sort of said that.
Okay. And sometimes the discussion has turned a little ugly. Shall we say that?
Yes.
So what are some things? I mean, we know that there are children. We don't want to say any words that are inappropriate, but things have been said to you as a result of some of the things that you write. Are there some things that are sort of PG-13 that you can share?
Well, just like people equating me like with a Nazi or genocide, or calling me names. One girl who I think was like only about 15 years old saying that I was like a Jew who sympathized with the Nazis during the Holocaust, and I gladly jump into a crematorium, things like that.
Because that's actually the way things are. Those who go demanding a cure to autism, it is the eugenics movement, the continuation, wanting to end different neurotypes that don't fit this ideology of a superior, normal human. That is what the eugenics movement was all about, producing paradise on Earth, and so on. It was an absolute racist, sexist, ableist movement. And that's why so many people have been under social injustices. It was the result of the eugenics movement. And eliminating autism, since autism is part of who we are, it is part of our identity, the parts of ourselves that we like as well as the parts that we dislike. But haven't I just described every human there? Don't all humans have difficulties? Don't all humans have strengths? So I don't quite see the problem there with me having difficulties. I don't see the problem with that. It's exactly what I should expect. So that's why some people call them Nazis and eugenicists, because those who want a cure, according to the science, the only way is eugenics and genocide. And we're already doing genocide on those with Down syndrome. So we do know that they will do it. So people can be equated as a Nazi, can be equated to an eugenicist, and so on, if they want to eradicate disabilities rather than be accepting of them and just supportive. So carry on.
And that's really inaccurate, right? I mean, it's not that you're against the autism community, but at all. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're not against the autism community.
No.
You just wish that you had the ability and that you'd like others to have the ability to overcome the more disabling aspects.
Yes.
Okay. And what would, on your wish list of things that
on overcoming the more disabling aspects, that's what the neurodiversity movement is all about. about providing accommodations and civil rights. So what's he complaining about here? And where the woman just mentioned about inaccuracy, that's very inaccurate. I would say this whole video up to now has been very inaccurate about autism and about neurodiversity. Because again, it's so focused on autism, but neurodiversity is about everyone. So I think this is something all these anti-neurodiversity people get mixed up with. I think they're actually referring to what's called the autistic self-advocacy movement. The autistic self-advocacy movement and the neurodiversity movement are not one and the same. They are two separate movements.
That you would like to be able to overcome, what would be the first thing that you would like to overcome?
Well, being able to have friends and a girlfriend, not having the handwriting or motor coordination problems, and being able to get things done, during the day, because it's very hard for me to apply myself. It's hard for me to get like writing and other things done. I guess I won't say having a job, because I guess I'm financially comfortable thanks to my parents. I'm retired now. Like I tried to work. I worked sporadically for many years, from like age 24 to 51, and I was a medical transcriptionist, but I had problems, was fired from then I end up like retiring at 51.
Okay. But I still look
But all the problems that I just mentioned then, it comes from society, where it speaks about motor problems and so on. These motor problems are not a result of the autism itself, it's the environmental signals interacting with the genes determining development. Our genotype just offers our potential of who we can develop into, but it's the epigenetics that determine our development. So if he was provided a suitable environment, he would have flourished and developed very well, the motor skills and so on. During lockdown of COVID-19, autistic kids suddenly just began developing. But the difference was, rather than being at school in an unsuitable classroom, they were in their homes, comfy, unanxious, in a very suitable environment, and they flourished. They did. Just as the science would say, but as we've gone seeing here, these two are not very scientific.
look at what you're doing now. I mean, you've written a book.
Yeah.
And you're very active on your blog. You're very active on the internet. I mean, that's work. You're prolific and working in that way.
Okay.
You're creative, and that's a wonderful thing. But have you tried to do anything? I'm sure you have over the years. Have you tried any therapies or anything to help you to be able to have friends and help you to be able to have a girlfriend?
I was in psychoanalysis, for over 10 years, and I saw a psychiatrist and then like another psychologist, other than, and I guess I had sensory motor training, that was just, when I was a kid, that was supposed to help like with my motor coordination problems. Maybe that's not like trying to help me make friends, but other than that, I really didn't have anything.
Okay. So if somebody were to say to you now, okay, we want to work with you on social skills so that you can be able to have a girlfriend, would you be interested in that?
No, because I don't believe it, would be effective, and particularly, like at my advanced age.
You say that like it's over. It's not over yet.
Technically, I suppose.
I know people who have found love in their 60s.
Okay.
But it has to be something that you're interested in, and if you're not interested in it, I certainly don't want.
I don't believe there's anything that can really be done.
Okay. And so what would you like the community to know? Do you think anything was misunderstood in the article? Is there anything that you'd like to put out there to let people know?
Yes.
The first point I would say, one of the problems is John Mitchell doesn't know what he's talking about in his articles. He doesn't know what the neurodiversity movement even is. It's absolutely full of inaccuracies altogether and false accusations. So there's no need to wonder why people equate him and accuse him of self-hatred. If he was actually being accurate and just sharing his points of view about it, rather than actually acting this way as if, it's a disease and something that should not be allowed to exist. If he wasn't talking like that, people won't equate him as a Nazi or or an eugenicist, but just accept him as part of his point of view. There is some other YouTube videos by actually autistic people who disagree with the eugenics movement, but they don't have all this kind of language of describing people like a disease. They are actually respectful of each other's language. So the ones who like being autistic, on the other channels with autistic people, they know that some people see autism as part of their identity. So they respect that, even though they're on the other side of the debate, disagree. They don't want to go call someone's identity a disease. So they don't go using that terminology. Those on the other side, all that bad language, all that derogatory terminology, like idiot, imbecile, moron, fool, all of this lot, plus the R slur, all of that was by the eugenics movement and the kind of language that people like John Mitchell use. So if we just continue now.
Yeah, like one mistake they made was that it was that I got like a lot of the vitriol from parents, but that wasn't, that wasn't accurate. It was, from people alleging to be on the autism spectrum who believed in neurodiversity, and I'm trying to remember what, and that I'm not like a hater or a self-hater, or I'm trying to remember what. There are probably some other things, but I can't remember them all. There were some inaccuracies, in the article, but I think that's, par for the course for these media type things.
And the people who think and are saying these not nice things to you, that are when you write something saying that you're against the whole community, what would you like to say to them?
Well, I think that they should just stop blogging and stop being mean to people, and that they should just give up neurodiversity and just leave parents alone that want to help their kids and have a better life for their kids, and help whoever leave people alone who want to be.
Now, I would say that's very problematic and hypocritical. Isn't that basically John Mitchell and Susan here trying to silence people with the opposing view? Those on the opposite side are not trying to silence others. It's just by us being the majority part, the majority of them supporting the neurodiversity movement, our voices are simply a bit louder. It's not that we are not listening to the other side, because we are listening to their views. Those who don't agree with neurodiversity. And that's why we're able to refute their views, refute it, and show how it's so unscientific and illegitimate. Such as John Mitchell's claim, I don't believe in neurodiversity. It doesn't believe brains are different to one another. That's just delusional. That idea there, that all brains are meant to be identical. It doesn't believe in that we require genetic variation among our species. Think of that. We're all meant to be the same, this so-called normal. It's just delusional, and it is a continuation of racism, sexism, and ableism. And let's not pretend that online meanness is a one-way thing, such as how John Mitchell describes them as a disease, disrespecting their view that their autism is a part of their identity. He then claims they're a disease. Is that kind of John Mitchell? By claiming they're a disease, suggesting genocide through eugenics, saying, let parents cure their kids without their kids' consent. Consent doesn't matter. That's a violation of human rights. Why shouldn't it be up to the kids themselves? That's one of our points on it, and one of the points where we have higher ethical standards. As our side of the debate is, it should be up to the individual, not up to the parents. Just like they said with those with Down syndrome, they said it would be up to the one with Down syndrome, but no, it's not. It's up to the parents. and then they just abort the child. So we know that the medical system's not going to keep its promises. And so they actually rather act as hypocrites here by claiming we're not allowed to talk, which is rather hypocritical.
Be cured of their condition. I know that's not going to happen, but that's what I'd like to say to them.
And I would say that is very scientifically inaccurate, very inaccurate about the neurodiversity movement to begin with, that it doesn't know what it's talking about. They refute themselves their own claims that, ASD3 don't have a say in this. They've proven right there that it's those of ASD3 who do support the neurodiversity movement, because they're claiming the ones who can speak don't support it. By claiming that those of ASD3, they don't have the ability to speak. They can't speak for themselves. So that means those of ASD3 have not gone saying, we don't agree with the diversity movement. So that's parents putting words in their own kids' mouths. Parents lying. Jonathan Mitchell lying. Sue lying on Autism Live. And where she spoke about letting them help their kids. That part is so dangerous. We've allowed parents to help their kids. We've done that. But let's look at some of the results. A parent dropped their child off at the ABA clinic. The child was going through aversives, having to put up with so much noise. As a result, she got dropped off the next time by a mother, the parents helping by sending her to some place of torture. This girl must be tortured into behaving in a specific way. She ran away from the clinic. 2 therapists chased after her. Then she had the choice. She could either run out into the middle of evening traffic or get caught by the therapist and do ABA. In her aching head, she was saying to herself, I can't do any more ABA. I can't do ABA. I can't do ABA. But she ran out into the middle of the road, got hit by a car, and the 2 therapists walked away and just left her there. That's one example. Another example is suicidal behaviours. We just left parents to help the kids with things like ABA, and the result was suicide. We found that parents tried helping the kids, and they drugged the kids to death. They were drugging the children with drugs which had not been proven. They're doing that still this day. Let's go help the kids. They go consume these scams on the market that are being sold, leaving parents to do that, and they go poison the children in the process. So it's actually quite disgraceful that these parents are willing to go putting stuff down the kids' throats without medical supervision. That's disgraceful. All these so-called diets and so on, money scams. So, then we've got filicide. Letting the parents help the kids. I'll murder my child because my child hates his life. And then the other parents go showing sympathy to those parents who murdered their own child. The founder of Autism speaks, I just want to help my daughter, and to do so, I'll drive her off of the George Washington Bridge. You really call that parents helping? There's decades and decades of scientific literature that shows that when autistic people complain about what parents are doing to help their kids, the autistic people are the ones who know better. We have learned helplessness, decreased intrinsic motivation, interpersonal problems. We found so many problems. Compliance, unconditional obedience, increased chancehood of being sexually abused, all as the results of what parents do to help the kids. So should we really just leave it to that? I would say no. we should actually listen to the autistic community concerning interventions. Yes, the neurodiversity movement does not oppose interventions. It opposes specific ones, particularly eugenics and ABA, because we know ABA is absolutely devastating and torturous. It really hurts. The individual has very negative long-term results, and we have evidence of this from other scientific disciplines. So you can go in comment sections, you'll find autistic people saying things like, say, you should try the DIR floor time model. You could try the skates model. You could try music therapy. You'll find them promoting all the other therapies, occupational therapy. You'll find them saying, no, it's okay, do this therapy. Just don't do ABA or eugenics. That's all the autistic community is saying. So the neurodiversity movement is not against interventions. It's not against parents helping their children. It's against parents hurting their children. So if you made it this far, thank you for listening. And I'll see you on the